Hi Joyce. Alright, here's your past life spread. So, what we're going to look at is where we were, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day, another important day, the death, the lesson learned, and throughout we'll get a sense of the time period. And so I was getting impressions and images as I'm laying this out, and this has a very strong, like a feminist, female, woman empowerment, maternal vibe to it right off the bat. And we're going to be looking at the life of a woman here, okay? So we're starting in Africa. This is the place where it is. It's in Africa. And Africa, I mean, there's so many parts to it. And you know, in other readings, it's been ancient Egypt, or it's been Moroccan, or it's been, you know, South African. But this one, I feel like it's in the heart of the continent, in a place where it's very tribal. Like, I know there's still a lot of tribal stuff going on in small communities, but this is a tribe. We're being planted in a tribe, and we're being planted in a tribe that may even have distinguishing marks on their body. How sometimes they might have those like lip rings or certain tattoos, where to our society it might not look pretty, but to their society it's beautiful. And so I'm seeing you in what I'm seeing is a young girl and the older version of this girl, because both aspects combine to create this story it's very interesting. So this right here is what you do with the majority of your time. This card is the science card, okay? So in this community, I feel like it is more male oriented in the form that, not that women weren't important, but that women certainly had their duty to do what they do, like for, you know, being a bride or being a wife, being a mother, very specific regulations and rules. And I feel like the men had more freedom here. And so it's interesting because what I feel like I'm seeing with this science thing is more of your mind, where your mind is at during this lifetime, versus what you do, because I have a feeling you're a very typical member of the tribe, where you are, you know, you wash and you get animal stuff, skin and stuff off of them to prepare for meals. You do all the usual custom daily things that a woman would do in this tribe. But as far as the daily workings of your mind, I feel like you are advanced here in the sense of science, in the sense of curiosity, in the sense of wanting to go outside of the norm for what women are supposed to be thinking about here. Almost like you only have a couple of people you know that you can talk to about certain things, or maybe even none at all. So I feel like you have like you're very smart, but it's like your intelligence is not going to be recognized here in this tribe. And you realize that, and there's almost a sense like you should be putting your foot in the outside world. And I feel like this, even though the customs the customs going on in this tribe would indicate something very long ago, I feel like it's actually not long ago at all. It's just that this is a tribe stuck in the past, stuck in centuries ago of how they do things. And I feel like this is a tribe plunked in the middle of modern things happening. So I want to say this is almost like, it feels like we're talking about like the 70s or the 60s, or somewhere where there's civilization and modern technology being brought around them, but they're just staying very primitive, I guess is what I'm saying. So with that said, I feel like this could possibly have been your last life, basically is what I'm saying. So let's go to the first important day. And this is really interesting because I feel like this, okay, so this card is the Conquered card. Either they've come or they're welcome. So it means that there's new people coming in who are joining you, or people are coming in to disrupt the place. And I feel like what this is it's kind of the feeling of you have a sister tribe. Your tribe has a sister tribe, and they're coming, and sometimes they converge and and they crossbreed, I guess, in order so it's not so much family breeding with family, like, so they'll do marriages and unions between each other, but it's basically the same tribe, but far enough apart where it's not like incestuous. So I feel like there's people coming over to kind of survey the property, so to speak. So let's say that you are a young woman here and you're at marrying age, or you're coming of age, and this other tribe wants to come and see you and the other young women for prospective brides. And that's the feeling I get. And so you welcome these people like friends. This is the friends card. So in your mind, they're friends. The feelings that are associated here, we get the betrayed card. So when I look at this, what I strongly get the feeling of is, I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's something called female genital mutilation. And it's a common process in tribes in Africa and certain, and even Arab countries, where it's female circumcision essentially. And it's done in a way where the young women who it's being done to, let's say they're around, like, they're young, like, so you're still too, it's like, and they marry young too, so I don't know if you're too young to get married, but you're certainly, like, I feel like this is what's happening to you. This is the day where you and I feel like there's just a couple of other girls at your age where you're getting your female circumcision, and it's kind of an ambush. So the people you thought were friends coming in, almost like, oh, this is our people, these are our tribes, they're coming for a visit. It's not so much of a friendly visit. It's, even though it's tradition, and it was done to your mother and her mother and her mother, it's still like an ambush on you, because it's traumatizing and it's unexpected and surprising and painful, but it's still tradition, and you're so entrenched in this tradition that you allow it to happen even though it's terrifying. And so it's almost like this is a very kind of traumatic day when you realize that the people close to you may not really have your best interests in mind, and that they would hold tradition over breaking that tradition for comfort or love, if that makes sense. So your job during this is to make connections to your current life. Whether that's an interest in African culture or art, whether that's an interest in, or whether you can tell, like, oh yeah, I do have more of a scientific mind, interested in the workings of things and biologies and chemistry, things like that. Or in this day, what I'm getting here is something like the feeling of expecting something from people that you thought you knew, or thought you could expect certain things from them, and having them kind of turn your expectations on their head, and feelings of possibly betrayal. Like, this has happened, maybe it's a theme in your life where it's happened in a way that it was a certain, like, timestamp on your life that you can really recall it. So those are the kind of connections you want to make. And these kinds of connections, they impact your life today. So it's almost like if this in any way, if you have feelings of being closed off to people for a certain extent before you let them in, things of, feelings of maybe not trusting as easily as you should when someone is showing no ulterior motives and you just can't let go and open up, that kind of thing, it can stem from this kind of thing. All right, so this is a kind of a interesting day that marks you in some way. Then here we have the next important day, and it's very interesting because here we have a birth. And these cards are not always face value. It doesn't always mean that you're giving birth. It can mean you're witnessing one or you're helping facilitate one, but in this instance you're giving birth. It's an impression and an image I'm getting, and you're giving birth. You've been married off. And I feel like you were married off to the other tribe, even though you still come home to see family, kind of thing. You're in another environment and you're giving birth, and it's not a good experience for you. But it's interesting because you're feeling so many mixed feelings about something that is supposed to be it's not just your duty, but you know, the women are telling you it's a good thing. This is wonderful. You're a wife and now you're a mother, and what more could you want? But you're having these very torn feelings about this because not only is it one of the most probably painful experiences besides this one in your life, you also have that mind where you are curious and you have the soul of someone that wants to see things and get out and experience things. And so now you have a child and you have a new duty on top of your other duties. And it's just not an easy kind of thing. It's not an easy life here. And so it's interesting because the relationship card here, this is karmic. It's a karmic relationship. And that child is very much part of your soul group. This child actually ends up being the thing that saves you in a way. It's because even though the experience is not really great, you do form a bond with this being, this soul that's come into your life in a way that you did not expect at all. You know how they say, oh, it's not the same until you have your own. That's what you experience. You're like, oh my God, I love this child so much. But with this child comes responsibility and duty and expectation. And I feel like it's a boy. I feel like it's a male child. And so that's also kind of, it's uneasy for you as well. Even though you're glad it's not a female, I feel like there's feelings of relief so the female doesn't have to go through what you went through. But at the same time, you're intelligent enough to realize, hey, this isn't right. The men get to walk around and not go through any rituals of passage besides maybe killing an animal and putting blood on their face for it, while we have to have our bodies mutilated. And we have to go through all this, and there's so much expectation of us. So this was a really impactful day because it's so you took a lot of appreciation almost and interest in how your emotions were just so this way and that way, and how that can connect in your life today. How it might connect is when you're going through something, you think it's one way, just like this, like you think something is going to happen, and so we have 2 days where you think something is going to be one way and it turns out to be a different way. You're experiencing this really like hard birth, but then it turns out to be the best day of your life because you brought in your best friend and your child, and you have a very good strong relationship with this child. It's someone that's probably in your life today. Honestly, there's a strong thing here where I feel like you and this soul, whoever it is, you come into each other's lives to give reprieve, to give like kind of like breathing space to the other person, like a shoulder to lean on in a world where there aren't any other. And I feel like that's your role with each other. So if you have someone in your life that you like, that one person you can just like lean on them and they're solid for you and you trust them. If that's the case, this could be that person. If not, that person could be coming into your life. All right, so just keep making these kinds of connections. And so what also comes to mind is you may or may not, but you may be someone who, when you're going through something, it can get chaotic in your mind because you're being torn. Whenever you have mixed feelings, it might seem more chaotic for you than for other people. And so that might be something you're going through, and it stems from this life of not really being able to sort out anything because you so desperately, there's this feeling of you wanting to escape and wanting to get away and not even knowing the first step to take, but just like that uncertainty of knowing that this is not right for me. There is something out there that is right for me. I just don't even know the first step to take. Like, that's a very confusing thing. And so that confusion, I feel like, was just kind of part of this life because here this happened, you were confused, like, I'm supposed to trust these people and they hurt me. And this is, I don't want to have the burden of this, yet I'm in love with this child. So it's like very, confusing and chaotic in a way in this lifetime. And at the same time, you're highly intelligent and you have to hide it. So it's like it's constant. You're constantly having to guard yourself and hide things from others, and yet your natural way you still want to explore. So it's a very volatile life here. So let's move forward. Let's go to your death. And this is interesting because this is the murder card, and what's happening, what they're showing me, is that your own people actually end up ending your life because you don't know how to get out of it, so you just try to escape. It's like you're so smart, but your emotions just overwhelm you. At least at this point, they overwhelmed you to the point where you're like, screw it, I need to get out of here, I need to run, let's just go. And you just like take off with your kid. You just take off like out of the village into the woods, because they're showing me a forest, and I'm seeing you in the forest is where they get you. I don't know what they do. I feel like they capture you, and I feel like there's a stoning thing that they do, almost like you're hit with a rock too many, like you're being stoned, basically. That's what I feel like it is like you're being stoned to death. And I feel like the one that got you was in the head. And I feel like there's also this half-buried feeling of you being stuck in the ground, and that's how they stone you. And I want to say how that can be linked to you is if you have any claustrophobia, if you don't like being stuck in a place in a small area, a tight area or anything like that for even just a moment, if you have those feelings, claustrophobia, it stems from this as well. You may get headaches. You may get headaches in the back of your head or in the front of your head, because I feel like I'm just seeing this big flat gray rock like smashing into your skull, and it's like it creates like, it's almost like a concussion that knocks you out where you don't wake up out of it. That's just what I'm seeing. So if you do get headaches and you don't know why, it can very well stem from here too. Yeah, and also you may also have feelings of being overprotective of, if you have kids, you might be overprotective, or even friends, children. You might be really overprotective of children. Just keep that in mind, because your kid was with you when they captured you, but they didn't kill your child because your child was valuable. And it's almost like if it was a girl, no, they would have kept the girl anyway, but I feel like because like your son was very valuable to them for some reason, so he wasn't killed, which is good. But you were still so protective of this person. So you might find yourself being protective of your close friends. Like once you make a friend and that friend becomes part of your inner circle, you may be very protective to the point of being even possessive, because it takes a while possibly for these friendships to form. And that's what I'm feeling. It might not be the case, but that's what I'm feeling. So keep that in mind. And so we get to the lesson card, and this is the lesson of boundaries, which is really interesting, because it's almost like this whole life it was like set up where you couldn't put up any boundaries, and that's all you wanted was boundaries of your body, and boundaries for, you wanted to use your mind, but you had to put boundaries there. You couldn't use your body how you wanted to. Your body was essentially your husband's and your tribe's. So nothing here was, you weren't allowed to have any boundaries here. The only reason you were so close with your son and able to have a good relationship was because that's your duty as a mother to foster a good childhood for your son in that sense. So you did that, right? And you were able to have some kind of control over here, but basically you were not allowed to control your own life and your own situation. And that was really, I think, the overriding lesson, was having to go through this life learning that you don't have control, and how to kind of function through a life as an intelligent person without control over where you lived, your body, your mind, all of that. You couldn't even control whether or not you wanted kids. You had to have kids. You just had to. And you knew better. You knew there was a modern civilization around you, and so you were also kept within the bounds of that kind of primitive community, even though you knew there was better out there. So I feel like this life was really just like so you can learn what it's like to not have control, but know that you wanted control in some sense, but you really couldn't get it. And when you tried to get it, when you tried to leave this situation, which we all sign up for these situations in our life, and when you try to leave it, the consequence was death. So I feel like you mostly learn this lesson, but there's still something left over, and that could be leaking into your current life, as far as any of these issues that have come up. So issues of control, of boundaries, of trust, of allowing others in, of overprotectiveness, of just any connections that we've gone through here. And so that's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for letting me read you.